Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Chris Shule, aka the Esoteric Noetic, aka the Chocolate Nubian Soul Brother from Ghana, West Africa. Dropping the wisdomatic truth bombs here now, mate. Here in Australia, you can rely on me because I'm true blue. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your momos. Drop us the comments, let us know what it is. Let's get it. Alright, so I came across a video of none other than the Tate brothers, specifically Cobra Tate, the top G, speaking about not only the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we're all aware of the Matrix, right? But essentially trying to unveil his knowledge in regards to why he thinks there is an agenda of the powers to be to stop people from eating meat, right? I thought I would take the opportunity to dismantle the arguments of Andrew Tate and also to enlighten people in regards to another conspiracy that a lot of my friends in the truth movement that are familiar with the Matrix are not aware of. And this is the Matrix.
Here you go, Leo.
Psst. Leo.
Who are you? And how did you know my name?
I am Morpheus, and I know a lot about you. Have you heard of the Matrix?
The Matrix?
Do you want to know what it is?
Okay.
The Matrix is all around you, Leo. It is the story we tell ourselves about where meat and animal products come from. This family farm is a fantasy. Take the blue pill and stay here in the fantasy. Take the red pill and I'll show you the truth. Welcome to the real world.
Wow! What is this horrible place?
This is a factory farm, Leo. Places like this are where most eggs, milk, and meat come from.
How did this happen?
I'll show you. In the mid-20th century, greedy agriculture corporations began modifying sustainable family farming to maximize their profits at great cost to both humans and animals. Factory farming was born. Animals are packed as closely together as possible. Most never see sunlight, touch ground, or get fresh air. Many can't even turn around. These cruel conditions cause fights and disease amongst the animals. To fix this, the corporate machine began systematic mutilations, practices such as debeaking chickens. And they started adding a constant dosage of antibiotics to their feed, just to keep these poor wretches alive. This overuse of antibiotics breeds super strains of resistant disease-causing germs. Every day we get closer to an epidemic that cannot be stopped.
Ew! What's that smell?
12 million pounds of excrement. This pollutes the air and groundwater. That's why communities near factory farms often suffer from high levels of related sicknesses.
Well, it smells like shh.
And what's more, factory farming corporations have been destroying communities and mistreating their workers for decades. Since 1950, over 2 million small hog farms have disappeared. If they continue at this rate, there'll be no real independent family farms left. That is the Matrix, Leo. The lie we tell ourselves about where our food comes from.
What are your opinions on veganism? Well, I'll tell you the reason I'm anti-vegan is because it goes against the law of the universe. It goes against the laws of reality. The idea that you don't have to kill something for you yourself to live and survive is asinine. Every single thing that exists on the planet has to destroy something else for it to exist. Plants just...
Okay, semantics. So Andrew Tate is making the false equivalency argument that essentially, because human beings, all life eats life, there is no distinction between life. I mean, fundamentally, if you consume plant life, it is the same as eating animal life, right? Like there's no distinction between cutting up a lettuce and cutting up your dog. I want you to think about that, not just here, but in here. I'm pointing to my heart here because anyone that is able to believe something like that clearly you can be fooled logically. A lot of people don't have more than a few brain cells floating around in their noggin. And I can understand some people buying into that argument. I can assure you, Andrew Tate probably doesn't believe that argument. He's just trying to convince other people to believe that argument so he can justify his gluttonous behavior in eating these animals. However, to truly acquiesce to that argument here from a heart-centered place and believe there is no distinction between eating plant life to going into someone's house, someone's farm, and picking a carrot out of the ground and eating it. There is no distinction between going out onto a farm and pulling a calf from its mother and then killing that calf. I mean, this is what people do. They eat veal. I mean, we're talking baby cows here. I mean, if you cannot see the distinction between those two things from a heart-centered place, then I do not have a problem saying there is something seriously lacking within you. And I think most people are aware that there is a massive problem with it. That's why they tend to steer away from this conversation. They try to just make convoluted arguments in regards to how veganism violates the natural laws of the universe and, fundamentally life eats life. Because fundamentally, this is about semantics. Yes, life eats life in the sense that in order for all life to be sustained in this universe, it needs to absorb some other life. We all need fuel. However, there is a distinction between sentient life and non-sentient life. Plants are not sentient beings. And most people that are intelligent enough to be human have this awareness. They realize that, yes, plants are alive, they have stimuli, but they do not have this brain or central nervous system connected to a heart. They do not have this subjective awareness. They do not feel pain in the same way. And whereas there's a lot of science that you can throw forth to say that all plants are sentient beings, we all intuitively know this. Intuitively, because when we look into a sentient being, we look into the eyes of a sentient being, we know that thing has a conscious awareness. And we do not feel that same way when we look at a plant. But more to the point, plants logically and intuitively are not sentient beings. And the idea of making this statement that veganism violates the laws of the universe because life eats life is not only unwise, but it is stupid. Those that can be made to believe absurdities will be made to commit atrocities. And the problem I have with Andrew Tate saying something like this is that the momos that actually buy into the persuasive language he uses and don't have the critical ability to actually look at what he's saying and actually think about it, not only here but here, buy into these arguments, and they somehow think it's justified in order to pay people to kill these sentient beings that are sharing this planet with us. And that is not only unwise, stupid, but it is fundamentally against the laws of the actual universe if you believe in any kind of natural laws, because the most fundamental principle of natural law of ethics is to do no harm. Don't infringe on the rights of others. Freedom is the birthright of all sentient beings, not just the beings that you care about in terms of your friends and family. Unless, of course, we have a true freedom movement where we care about all sentient beings, we don't have a freedom movement.
Nutrients to exist. Stars absorb other stars to exist. For you to exist as a sovereign individual, for you to exist as an entity, you must destroy something else. You destroy plants, even if you don't destroy animals. And insects. Beavers and worms. And all die for your something.
Okay. This is a horrible, disingenuous argument. So basically, he's making the false equivalency here that because as a vegan, vegetarian, call it what you will, you're killing insects, right? Like that is the same as someone paying someone to actually consciously kill a sentient being, right? So we're trying to equate unintentional harm here. So let's say you happen to build a road. You happen to build this road, and through the construction of the road, many people throughout the course of this end up dying. They end up injuring themselves and dying. Or there are cars that go on this road, and they end up having car accidents. To equate that, to say that someone is responsible for that has the same moral culpability as someone that consciously goes out and pays someone to intentionally kill a sentient being, to say that these things are the same is absolutely insane. And this is the false equivalency argument that Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate are making here by saying that you're killing insects, because clearly people, whereas at least most people don't go out and actually eat insects and kill them, he's making the argument by you growing these plant foods, you're indirectly supporting the destruction of insects, which is not something that typically happens. Now, granted, it may happen Just because something may happen doesn't mean that you are directly responsible for it. If we play that game, we're all responsible for the potential consequences of anything. This is the fallacious argument people use while advocating for you to be forcibly boom shakalaka, right? Because potentially you may infect other people, you may pass on viruses and so forth that may infect them and so forth. That's an appeal to potentiality argument. And the thing is, I know Andrew Tate is aware of the illogical nature of that argument, but nonetheless, he's making somewhat of a simple, at least his brother is at this point in time, making that kind of argument in regards to how vegans are responsible for indirectly killing insects.
Going to die so you can live. This is a fundamental law of the universe, and because I'm a realist, I refuse to live in a world where I ignore these fundamental laws. It may be unfortunate, but there is no nice way to die.
There is no nice way to die. So we're not going to make a distinction between someone dying of a natural death, right? Let's say someone that it grows old and dies, right? Through you not infringing on their rights, so you not consciously killing them or doing something to consciously bring about their death. We're not going to make a distinction between that and someone that goes out and murders a being, murders a sentient being, murders an animal, a deer, and says, well, I'm doing it, and look, they were going to die anyway. Everything dies. There's no way to bring about any kind of a situation where someone doesn't die. So I'm not going to make a distinction between me infringing on their life, which is where you are directly taking something that is not yours, in the same way that governments want to take away our liberty. This is the frustration I have with people within the truth movement that advocate for this. On one side, we have a group of people that very much, talking about the right, that very much, generally speaking, respect individual liberty. They don't believe in governments infringing upon their liberty for the greater good, right? However, they have this hypocritical worldview where they care only about their freedom for themselves. They're in-groups, right? However, they do not care about the freedom for other non-human animals. And they're quite happy to infringe on the rights of those non-human animals because they just don't care about them. And then on the other side, we have, typically the leftists that do actually have this tremendous heart-centered compassion for non-human animals. However, they don't respect these fundamental principles of liberty towards their own species. Freedoms in terms of freedom to do as you will without harming anyone directly. And they say, well, look, you're a walking virus, therefore you have to be forcibly inoculated. See, this is the problem that we have. Both sides are failing to see the hypocrisy of their arguments. Fundamentally, we have one side that is lacking heart-centered thinking, compassion. I would say that is Andrew Tate's side. But I think he's actually just consciously being disingenuous with a lot of the things that he's saying. I think he's clever enough to know what he's saying. He just doesn't care. He's fundamentally about me. I care about my friends, my group, and I don't care about these other non-human animals. And I'm going to make it sound as if fundamentally anyone that doesn't share my viewpoint is stupid, when the reality is he is not only stupid, but he is unwise because he's advocating that there is no distinction between plant life and animal life, and life eats life, which I think is the most grossly inaccurate thing you can say in regards to the situation at hand. But anyway, I digress. Let's hear what else Mr. Tate has to say in regards to veganism.
I will sit and watch a video of a slaughterhouse while eating a bucket of KFC chicken with absolutely no remorse. There is no nice way to die. There is only life and death. These animals must die so I can survive. The reason that veganism is being purported and propagated by the Matrix is because they don't want you to eat meat. They want you to eat vegetables.
Oh my God. Okay, so first of all, Andrew Tate has said that he's quite comfortable in sitting down and eating a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken while watching a bunch of animals being slaughtered. Now, as to whether or not that is true, you know what? I'm inclined to believe him. I think there is a part of Andrew Tate that has this tremendous disconnect where he has this psychopathy. I've heard him make statements on a similar light in regards to enjoying watching people's bones break when he punches them. Like this proclivity for enjoying people being harmed is something that you find with people that have this disconnect. They haven't awoken their anahata, their heart center, because fundamentally they're just caught up in this weird left brain mentality where they are not connected with compassion. And it's weird because as I say this, I know that Andrew Tate does have the capacity to show a tremendous amount of compassion. He speaks about how much he wants to protect women. Fair enough. He also has a charity for animals. He does actually take care of dogs. At least he has a charity that does that. Now, I would invite him to consider if someone came and slaughtered his dogs and and did that for food because they hadn't eaten any food for a long period of time, would he consider that the laws of the universe? So would he be comfortable with that, or would he consider that an absolute abomination? You see the hypocrisy of this kind of argumentation? So Andrew Tate is fundamentally saying that, look, he's quite happy to sit and eat Kentucky Fried Chicken while watching a bunch of animals being slaughtered. I'm inclined to think that whatever little ounce of compassion there is within Andrew Tate, that he probably would show some kind of discomfort, or he may not show it, but he would certainly feel it. As to this Matrix, this argument that he's making in regards to how the Matrix wants us to eat plants, it is the most retarded thing that I've ever seen. This is the disconnect there is within the truth movement, because we find certain people within the establishment, people like Bill Gates and people that are clearly doing things that we're not in line with, advocating for a plant-based diet. Oh, they must be evil, right? So if a bad person advocates for something that is good, that thing that he's advocating for cannot be good. This is the disconnected thinking that people often try to put forth. Clearly, people that are doing things that are horrible sometimes advocate for things that are good. The idea that we are seeing an agenda, and it's typically because there have been many activists like myself that have been advocating for this plant-based diet. We are seeing a theme at the moment where there are many foods that are opening, plant-based options for food. We are seeing a push where people are moving towards a plant-based diet. That's because nothing in this universe is ever one-sided. Granted, there is a tremendous amount of deceit and horrible things that are being pushed forward, because there is this other side that is also pushing for things that are more in line with heart-centered thinking. Yes, we often see within all of the insanity, good things being pushed. And one of these things is people turning towards a more plant-based lifestyle. People realizing that there is a lot of harm that goes on in this world outside of the destruction we cause towards human animals. And as a result, we are seeing far more vegan, vegetarian options out there. And to say that that's somehow in line with an agenda to deceive people, that fundamentally it's a way of perpetuating the Matrix, could not be further from the truth. The reality is that the greatest conspiracy, at least one of the greatest conspiracies, is the Matrix. That one, people have no idea in regards to what is happening to the food in which they consume. If people truly knew what they were eating within these McDonald's meats and so forth, if people really understood the crap that goes into their food in terms of and the thing is, it happens within all realms of food, not only just with animal-based foods, with vegan-based foods as well, but specifically in regards to the meat and dairy industry. If people understood just the tremendous pain and suffering that is going about with these foods, and then they also understood just the health consequences of this. And we've learned just over the years. 2015, World Health Organization announces that processed meats become listed as a carcinogenic food. And then we have all of this information coming about that most of us have been aware of in regards to the dangers of a meat-based diet. But of course, people will still make this argument that meat is actually very healthy, and that fundamentally it's this agenda, this new world agenda, the Matrix, that is trying to get you to stop eating your meat, because it's a way of casting this dream spell to try to prevent you from seeing what's really going on in the world. Could not be further from the truth. Complete and utter rubbish.
80% of my calories are from meat. People always say to me all the time, Tate, how do you have such a good physique when all you do is drink? Well, firstly, not all I do is drink. Secondly, I built it when I was young, training like an animal. It's easy to maintain. Thirdly, I'm on absolutely no testosterone replacement. I'm 36. My testosterone levels are the absolute upper echelons of the limit. I have no testosterone replacement, no pills, nothing. No protein shakes, nothing. I'm building my own supplement line now, which is the only one I'm going to start taking. And I eat a bunch of meat. I'm a meat eater. 80% of my calories. All
right, here's the thing. There's no question that you can be healthy, strong. I mean, healthy is a very subjective word. You can live up to many years on a meat-based diet. You can be healthy. Many world-class athletes, I'd say for the most part, because most people on this planet eat meat. There's no reason why you cannot thrive on a meat-based diet. The point we're trying to make here is that it can be done on a plant-based diet as well, and some of the top-performing athletes are on a completely vegan diet. Throughout history, this has actually been the norm, from the ancient Roman gladiators to the Spartans. Yes, contrary to popular belief, they actually were on a plant-based diet, and the evidence that we've learned over the last few decades has actually shown that. There's a site in Turkey that showed basically the burial of a gladiatorial arena, and they found after having a look at the bones within this gladiatorial arena that these people lived off of a vegan diet. And the classic writings show this. I mean, they were known as the barley men. They lived off of legumes, off of barley. And we only have to look at around us in terms of the many high-performing athletes, like yours truly, the Chocolate Nubian, a great bastion of freedom.
And up. Nice. Good. Use those glutes. One more. Let's go. Let's get it. And up strong. Yes. Never deadlifted before. What the hell, man?
That does not eat any dead corpses, that can bench press over 160 kilograms. Ladies and gentlemen, it is obvious that you do not need to eat animals in order to be healthy. But for some reason, people make this argument that, look, you need to eat animals to be healthy. And clearly, Andrew Tate has been able to do it. Clearly, he can. But to say that you cannot be healthy unless, of course, you consume animals is ridiculous. And this is the fundamental argument most of these proponents of the carnivore diet are advocating for.
Every single thing that the Matrix purports, every single thing that the Matrix is telling you to do is designed to make you weaker and easier to program. They are trying to make your mind empty. You must resist the slave mind. In the interest...
You see, this is the frustrating I find with people within the truth movement. They make arguments which are seemingly true to some extent, because I would agree that the Matrix, and when we're talking about the Matrix, we're talking about the establishment. Yes, many of the things that they advocate for are essentially to make you submissive, to actually to dumb you down so you'll be more inclined to listen to them in regards to the media, in regards to how the society is set up. In regards to the foods that we eat, for the most part, these things are marketed because the companies that are behind the marketing, they fundamentally want to make money. When it comes to the health industry, fundamentally, it is still a business. They want to make money, and it makes sense to have them coming back to you. And look, granted, you can make the argument that it makes sense for the health industry to essentially continue having you sick so that you can essentially get more of their sick care. When it comes to the health industry, fundamentally, they're trying to make money. They're trying to sell things to you. And do you want to understand what the biggest industry is around food? It's the meat and dairy industry. This billion-dollar industry that spends a tremendous amount of its money marketing certain foods to you to make you think that it's healthy to consume dairy, to consume these meats. And they market a lot of these foods as being health foods when they could not be anything other than that. And it's interesting to note that as to the science that has been coming about over the last few years, since 2015, where the World Health Organization ubiquitously agreed that meats were carcinogenic, processed meats being in the class 1 category, and just meat in general being in the 2B category for likely carcinogenic. We've learned that even despite all of the marketing that has been pushed forth, bearing in mind when they made this decision, there were no vegans on the board. This is a situation where the truth is so incredibly obvious that despite the tremendous marketing, that despite the matrix, this is the agenda at hand that is essentially trying to pull the wool over your eyes. The truth is still coming to light in regards to the dangers of the meat and dairy industry. But of course, Mr. Cobra Tate would have you believe that it's the opposite, that fundamentally the matrix is all about trying to make you weak so that you can stay pacified and not fight the tremendous violations of our freedom that are going forth. I call bullshit on that.
Of spreading this positive message about eating animals, I'm going to give you guys an argument to take home that I think is original to me. I think I came up with it. If somebody decides not to eat meat and they really say, I don't want to eat meat, I don't think it's for me, that's fine. But when the vegans go too far is when they say humans shouldn't eat meat, no human on earth should eat meat. Bring up the Maasai tribe. The Maasai are not just a tribe. The Maasai are a people that inhabit most of West Africa, from Nigeria all the way down to South Africa. And these people have a very ingenious way of living. What they do is essentially they have cattle with them, and they walk around with the cattle, and the cattle eat the inedible plants, thorns, grass, things that humans way for that human species, that human population, tribe, which has been around for longer than any modern civilization, by the way, to flourish and thrive in that area without this ingenious way of recycling plant proteins through their cattle. And I think it's absolutely genius. So,
All right. First of all, I'm going to call up Tristan. When Tristan says that there is no other way for these people, this Maasai tribe, to essentially live within their current environment, this is the plea of every tyrant, that there's no other way to do this. This is the same argument that the southern plantation owners would make when they were enslaving black people. These are the same arguments that the government has been making in regards to why it's been bringing about the lockdowns. There's no other way. It's necessary. Necessity is the plea of every tyrant. There are always ways. You simply need the imagination, the creativity in order to look for other solutions towards doing things. To suggest that even in the most extreme situations within this world, this Aquarian age that we're in, where we can access all these technologies, essentially we can pull water out of the air. We're going to reach a point, in fact, I'd say we're there, where we can create organic matter through technology, 3D printing. That's the next stage, ladies and gentlemen. To say that there is no other way to do something could not be further from the truth. But to address the point in regards to the Maasai warriors, first of all, I fundamentally state that it is fundamentally wrong to violate the sovereignty of another being. And Andrew Tate, if he was being honest, he'd agree with that. But only if it applies to human beings. I would say that that applies to all sentient beings. To quote Optimus Prime, freedom is the birthright of all sentient beings. It's not something that is bestowed upon only human beings, but it's bestowed upon all sentient beings. If an alien race was to come down to our planet and say, "Oh, you're not sophisticated enough, we're going to enslave you," they could make the same argument. Well, we believe in freedom, but it's only for our alien race. It doesn't apply to human beings. It would be absolutely asinine for us to fairly argue that no, these aliens should bestow freedom upon us. However, we're allowed to essentially violate the rights of our animals. It's completely ridiculous. If you're trying to be consistent with this, you have to realize that any being that has the awareness to actually look at reality, to have awareness of itself, has the capacity to feel pain, is bestowed upon the right to live their own lives. So regardless of what the extenuating circumstances may be in regards to these Maasai warriors, fundamentally, it is wrong for them to violate the life of other sentient beings. Now, granted, I would understand that, yes, there are certain situations where it's much more difficult, and it may make sense in order to have animals. I don't have a problem personally with humans being the custodians, being the guardians of these beings and actually taking care of them. In the same way that we are guardians towards our dogs and so forth, we have their best interests at heart. I don't believe in violating them and chopping them up and eating them. However, no, I don't believe in. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with using animals, whether using them to graze the crops, provided they don't have a problem with that. They're not showing any kind of resistance to that kind of stuff. Many of these animals, whether they be sheepdog or certain cows, actually enjoy being exercised in the farm. But that doesn't mean exercising their freedom in terms of chopping them up and killing them. So this is what I take issue with. It's the act of violating the sovereignty of other beings, whether that be human animals and non-human animals, and saying that it's necessary. For someone that advocates for this consistently in regards to their own sovereignty, it seems somewhat inconsistent for them to be making this argument that when it deals with other beings, other sentient beings, they should not be granted the same sovereignty. And for someone that also has this background, I mean, for those that are not aware, Andrew Tate's father was a black man. I'm sure his ancestry deals with his people being persecuted. I mean, to not have the awareness of the tremendous moral turpitude that was brought upon these people, with arguments similar to what Andrew Tate is making, that it was necessary for these people to be enslaved, to not be granted the right of freedom because they were only 3/5 human, and it was necessary in order to ensure that the economy could be thriving. This is the argument the southern plantation owners would make. You realize the absolute illogical nature and the uncompassionate nature of this kind of argumentation. And I think anyone that is truly heart-centered is really looking at this not just logically but intuitively, realizes that you cannot have a freedom movement if we are enslaving these beautiful beings that we share this planet with. As above, so below. And it's important to take note of the fact that, look, where is Andrew Tate as someone that very much speaks about sovereignty and personal development, essentially improving yourself. All good and well. But there is one approach towards freeing yourself from the tyranny of this planet. One is what you'd call the Luciferic approach, where you focus on yourself, your in-group, your family, your friends, and you only focus on what you can do to thrive. And this is all good and well. This will liberate you. However, there is the Christic approach, which is the approach where you try to uplift the vibration of the planet, rather than just being concerned with yourself, your little in-group here, your group of people that are free from the tyranny, but you also try to uplift the vibration of the planet, not just in terms of what is going on within your immediate circle, but expand yourself. Cast a wider net of compassion towards those around you. Bring about agape. And this is called the Christic Ascension. This is where you essentially try to liberate all beings that are worthy of freedom. And that is all the beings that inhabit this sky, all the sentient beings within this universe. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think about Andrew Tate and his thoughts on veganism. Drop us the comments below. Remember, there are 3 things that cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the wisdomatic truth bombs of the Chocolate Nubian Soul Brother.
Like this notion of liberty, for example. What is liberty?
And I think that concept of the will is very important.
What the? Who says you can't build muscle on a vegan diet? What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
Bitcoin will not work as digital gold.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.
Everyone deserves the same chance, the same treatment, the same respect.
World that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic